Hungria. Can you hear us? Carlos Hungria, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Megan, I just emailed you another address for David Klein.
I got it. I'm sending a panelist email to him as well.
Martha Sullivan, can you hear us? Martha Sullivan, can you hear us?
She's in the Q&A box right now. I'm working on it.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Miss Sullivan, can you hear us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Is Jeff Snowden on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. We can hear you. Thank you. Maria Dorelli, can you hear us?
Maria Dorelli here.
Mary Campusano, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. Randy Householder, can you hear us? Randy Householder, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Dave. I just got in.
We got you, Dave. We're just doing a little bit more house cleaning, then we'll begin. Deborah, are we about ready?
Glenda, I'm just to make sure that we have everyone sound checked, and I'm not sure, I think we do have just about everyone done. Patrice Wallace, can you hear us? Patrice Wallace, are you there? Okay. Glenda, I think we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Good evening. This is a Planning Commission public information meeting. Present at this evening's meeting are Jeremiah Weddle, Denny Reeder, David Klein, BJ Getz, Jeff Semler, Randy Wagner, and I'm Clint Wiley. The purpose of this meeting is to consider a major change request to the Black Rock PUD submitted to the Washington County Department of Planning and Zoning. The meeting will be conducted as follows. Staff will present a summary of the request. The applicant will have 15 minutes for their presentation. The Planning Commission members will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff and/or the applicant. Citizens will be given the opportunity for comment. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. One representative of a group or organization will be given 5 minutes to speak. The applicant will be given 5 minutes for rebuttal. The Planning Commission will review all facts, information, and written and oral comments received before making its recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners at a later date. The Board of County Commissioners will then hold a public meeting or hearing. I'm sorry, they will hold a public hearing. The date of the public hearing is not known at this time. However, it will be advertised in a local newspaper's legal ads 14 days before the hearing and again 7 days before the hearing and posted on the county's website. At the end of the County Commissioners' public hearing, the comment period will close. This meeting is being recorded. Please keep your microphones muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you. So Jill, we have tonight the case RZ 21003 Morrison Ritchie Associates Incorporated Black Rock PUD. Proposed change in RT-PUD approved 595 residential lots to RT-PUD with proposed 1,148 residential dwelling units. And Jill, are you presenting this tonight?
I will be. Thank you, Clint.
The floor is yours.
So as described, this is a request for a major change to an approved. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we have you, Jill.
So as discussed this evening is a request for a major change and an approved plan unit development for Black Rock Estates. This is the subject of this is 2 parcels, one of which is approximately 160 acres in size, the other which is approximately 60 acres in size. Both of the parcels are located within the urban growth area that surrounds the city of Hagerstown and the towns of Williamsport and Funkstown, and they form the easternmost property along the boundary of the urban growth area. Population in this area, as you can see in the staff report, has increased over the last 30 years, significantly more than the county has. In terms of availability of public facilities, we'll start with the public water. Within the staff report, you'll see a fairly lengthy comment response from the city of Hagerstown regarding the water capacity issues for the property. I think the highlight to this is that while there is capacity currently available, it is on a first come, first served basis, so allocation is not guaranteed. And it should also be noted that while this property is within the medium range growth area boundary, in the models that the city has for water allocation, it is only approved for the 595 units in that allocation model. Increasing the number of units to the 1,148 would require the county, should it get approved, would require the county to modify that medium range growth area boundary somewhere else, i.e. In the form of retracting the boundary in another location to create enough area to serve this long term. So again, the highlight is that in the short term, yes, there is water available on a first come, first served basis. However, long term, we would have to adjust our boundaries to account for that extra allocation. The city also described in their comments the discussion about their water, the fire suppression efforts, and the distribution in terms of water pressures, and some comments they had there. From a wastewater perspective, again, this would be served by the city of Hagerstown. There are comments that are provided within the staff report that you all received previously. There are some upgrades that would be likely required should this request be approved. Under the heading of emergency services, we did get extensive comments regarding the fire protection services, actually from the city of Hagerstown. Currently, these parcels are served, they are split served between Smithsburg and the Funkstown fire companies, volunteer fire companies. However, should the property we do have the dual response that the city of Hagerstown may be called to services out in that area. So we sent it to them as well for comment, and you see the comments there regarding fire suppression efforts, water pressure, so forth and so on. They also have a discussion in there about the number of access points in terms of access is only out to Mount Etna Road, and they would like to see a redundant access. Emergency services did not respond to this request. However, it would fall into the response area of the Community Rescue Service. Schools, there's a very lengthy discussion within the staff report. I don't intend to go into a whole lot of detail other than to say that the projections from the estimated capacity or allocation that this would create would put the elementary school districts well over capacity. These two parcels are actually, again, split between two different school districts in terms of the school system. The first parcel is in the Ruth Ann Monroe, Eastern Elementary, Smithsburg Middle, and Smithsburg High feeder system. And the other parcel is within the Greenbrier Elementary, Boonesboro Middle, Boonesboro High feeder systems. And again, that's all called out within the staff report and the impacts of which that would be happening to those school districts. The middle school high school, middle school seem to be okay. There's probably some mitigation efforts that would have to take place, but are reasonable. The big concern coming out of this estimation would be the elementary schools. It seems to be putting a severe stress on the elementary schools, and there is no response or no estimation of mitigation either from the applicant nor from any CIP projects or anything like that from the county perspective. So there's one issue that would need to be addressed as part of the overall development plan. Moving on into the transportation, the highways. This property, we're looking at it, the two parcels as a whole, while the one parcel is technically landlocked. We're looking at this as a whole. So the access point would be through Mount Etna Road. The development plan that was in front of you showed two access points onto Mount Etna Road. And you can see in the staff report, we have included the most recent traffic counts in the vicinity of this development. A traffic study was completed in 2002 when the PUD overlay was first initiated, based upon the 595 units. That was expected to produce almost 4,600 trips. And the conclusions of that analysis indicated that additional traffic from the development would increase delays to the signalized intersections along 40 and Robinwood Drive. Furthermore, that development would add increased traffic along Whitehall Road through its intersections to Maryland 66. It should be noted that when that traffic study was completed was prior to all of the out at Robinwood. So some of those issues have been mitigated to some degree. We don't know to what degree because an additional traffic study has not been completed to date. The developer has provided an estimated trip count of a little over 8,000 trips that would be generated by this new development. So you can draw some assumptions based upon the previous traffic study as to what the impacts would be, but we don't have an actual traffic study impact for this portion of the development process. Historic sites within the vicinity of the property are listed there again within the staff report. Many of those are no longer in existence, but we just list them so that you know kind of what was in the area and sort of a progression of history of the area. The relationship of the proposed change to the adopted plan. We talk about the purpose of the comprehensive plan and the fact that this property is located within the low density residential policy area, and that planned unit developments are permitted as part of a request in the low density residential areas. Changes to the approval of the existing planned unit development. There is a specific section within the ordinance that talks about what needs to be evaluated when reviewing a major change of a previously approved PUD. There are basically 5 criteria that are listed out within the ordinance that include the purpose of the PUD district, the applicable policies of the adopted comp plan, the compatibility of the proposed changes to the PUD with neighboring properties, the effect of the proposed changes to the PUD on community infrastructure, and consistency with the intent and purpose of the established PUD. Again, in the staff report, those 5 points are analyzed for you to discuss and deliberate upon as part of this process. I'm not going to sit and read through all of that at this point. So staff recommendations, staff doesn't have a for or against recommendation for this project. What we found is that in identifying both the pros and cons to the development, that there are some things that, should the development be approved, could be of a net benefit to our infrastructure and to our infrastructure needs in the area. However, there is an equal amount of different types of infrastructure that conflict with the fact that they wouldn't be such a great thing on our impact on our infrastructure. So while we don't provide a for or against recommendation, what we recommend is to kind of hear out the applicant, see what their possible solutions are after hearing all of these issues, and then deciding if this is a prudent project, you know, kind of what we would expect from the developer to fix all of these issues, so that they could take that information and deliberate whether or not this would be a feasible project for them in the future. I don't have anything further to add. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Clint, and I assume the applicant's presentation.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, is there an applicant, a representative of Morrison Ritchie present?
This is Matt Powell with DRB Group, and
Okay.
we have 3 presenters: myself, Sean Davis with Morris Ritchie, and then Bill Erskine with Offutt Kerman.
All right. Well, understand you have 15 minutes, so we'll go ahead and let you get started.
I was understanding that we would have 30. I mean, we got a pretty lengthy presentation, but we'll try to run through it as quick as we possibly can here. Again, my name is Matt Powell. I'm the Vice President of Land and Acquisitions with the DRB Group. We have our team with Morris Ritchie, as I mentioned, Sean Davis, our land planner, John Erickson, who will be civil engineer, Offutt Kerman. We got Bill Erskine, who will speak to the legal end of things. And then with the traffic group was our traffic engineer, Mickey Cornelius. We are a little about DRB Group. We're 9 states, 10 divisions up and down the East Coast. We're a national top 20 builder, and we're projected to settle about 4,500 homes in 2021 and grow significantly over the next couple of years. We built our business in up and down the 81 corridor. The growth from Dan Ryan Builders has been from here. And we have several brands of product that we build. DRB Coastal, Fielding Homes, Dan Ryan Builders, and Elevate Homes are our active adult brand. Next. We're here before you to modify the currently approved PUD for Black Rock. That was garnered original PUD approval, zoning approval back in 2003. And I guess, you know, he asked, why are we here? Why the plan change and why the increased density? Market demands and home buyer needs have drastically changed since the original approval. The majority of our buyers want smaller lots, with less yard to maintain without sacrificing house size. More community-driven amenities are desired, more variety in product types and price points, attractive to buyers of all ages, and walkable communities with local gathering places for more social interaction and sense of community. Buyers want curb and gutter, sidewalks, walking trails, dog parks, tot lots, community gardens, and usable open space dispersed throughout the neighborhoods within the community, all of which our proposed revision will include. The existing approved PUD design doesn't offer product, lot types, and a layout that is consistent with what buyers in today's market want and desire. The existing PUD plan is approved for open section roadways, no sidewalks, large lots, 0 lot line lots, and shallow lot depths that are all part of an antiquated and outdated design and product type. Although containing more density, the revised plan takes greater consideration to existing topography, adjoining uses, market demands, buyer desires, and lifestyle. With over 15 million square feet of ongoing or planned warehousing and distribution projects in and around the county, and 300 acres of developable ground being solicited for new development adjacent to the Yale Drive and Professional Boulevard extensions, a master plan residential community of this nature and magnitude is essential to attract new employers and employees to the county. Finally, as staff mentioned, there are pre-existing and created infrastructure obstacles as any new development has when being proposed. These infrastructure upgrades and improvements carry a significant cost impact. The higher density we are requesting affords us the ability to contribute to the cost of improvements and mitigation efforts of existing issues and provides more capital to bring communities such as this to life. Next, please. So our vision for this community, as our team will elaborate on, is to offer Washington County a well-planned, vibrant, creative, exciting residential community inclusive of market rate and age-targeted housing styles. We will create neighborhoods within the village concepts, providing sense of community and pride for all residents, including seamless walkable connectivity between communities and neighborhoods. We're going to offer a variety of housing options and price points all within the same community, suiting people of all ages. We are going to design and brand the community with highly desired craftsman style architecture and aesthetics and common themes. We're going to provide passive and recreational open space and amenities that are multi-generational and multifunctional, catering to all residents, incorporating and preserving existing foliage and vegetation. And we'll deliver work, schooling at home infrastructure, and capabilities throughout the community. With this, I'll hand it over to Sean Davis.
Thank you, Matt. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. As Matt said, my name is Sean Davis. I'm a principal with Morris Ritchie Associates. I'm a landscape architect with 35 years experience in developing large-scale master planning communities throughout the eastern half of the United States. I also want to thank you for your service to Washington County. I serve as the chair for Baltimore City's Planning Commission, so I understand personally exactly all the things that you do. Next slide, please. So real quickly, this project will take 10 to 15 years to complete. The first phase of Black Rock, will take 2 years to get approved for all the state, county, and city approvals. When fully ramped up, if we're selling 70 to 100 homes per year, it's going to take 6 to 8 homes per month. We won't be done with this until 2034. The existing PUD was approved in 2004, 17 years ago, and nothing's been built, as Matt had mentioned, because of the product types that were proposed. So this is the first step in a long process. What I want to do is walk you through the planning process. We focus on analyzing the site, defining the program, creating the master plan, and then focusing on the details. Next, please. Starting with the analysis. This is a summary analysis plan which illustrates a variety of things. Walk you through quickly. Topography, each one of these grade or color gradations shows a 50-foot change in topography. The high point is the darkest brown in the center, in the northern tip. That's over elevation 700. The lowest elevations are on the east and west sides of the property, identified as low points. Those are below 550. There's 150 feet of grade change across the property. The majority of the property is farm cropland. However, there's a significant forest stand in the southwest corner of the property where you see numbers 4 and 5, 3, 4, and 5. There are no perennial streams, wetlands, floodplains, or rare, threatened, or endangered species on the subject property. There is a electric substation where you see number 4 just to the right of that, upper right of that. That substation leads to overhead Potomac Edison. Thank you. Overhead Potomac and Edison power lines, which run to the east, and then around 7 they make a turn, abrupt turn to the north. Those exist and those will remain in place. Road access is identified via the purple roads that you see through Mount Etna, along Mount Etna, and also Sasha Drive. But it's important to point that from our standpoint, the major access will be off Mount Etna, and the minor or secondary access will be off Sasha Drive, or Sasha Boulevard, excuse me. We will also be tying into the overall road system, which was mentioned previously by Ms. Baker. Robinwood is approximately 1.5 miles to our west. Jefferson Boulevard via Kiefer Funk Road is about 1 mile to our north, and Whitehall Road is about 1/3 of a mile to the east. Next, please. Here are photographs of the existing communities at Kings Crest, Stonecroft Apartments, Youngstown Apartments and Townhomes, and then the Black Rock Estates. Next, please. So as was previously mentioned, the property is outlined in red, and it is included in both the county's urban growth area, providing public sewer and water, and Hagerstown medium range growth area. The comp plan says this is sub-policy area, look for low density residential, which allows 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre, unless it's a PUD, which would allow up to 12 dwelling units per acre. This directs, and from a comp plan policy standpoint, we are compliant with the comp plan in 2 very critical ways. The comp plan directs new development to occur in areas where existing residential infrastructure exists, which it does here. And we are compatible with the comp plan regarding the PUD. In addition, because of this property's location in the area of the county, which is growing, as mentioned by Joe and Ms. Baker previously, and serving the Meritus Medical Center and the Hagerstown Community College, we think this is a great area for future development. Next slide, please. As is mentioned, the property is currently zoned residential transition with a PUD overlay, which allows 12 homes per acre for a total of 2,640 dwelling units that are permitted. We are proposing 1,148 or 5.2 dwelling units per acre. The approved PUD has 595 DUs. Next, please. This is a portion of the PUD ordinance for Washington County. It talks about things like density of 12 units per acre, tract size, open space. Over 25% of the site must be maintained in open space. That equates to 55 acres. It identifies landscape regulations, buffer yards from the property line. We must maintain a minimum of a 50-foot buffer from all property lines. Things like pedestrian connectivity and our bulk standards and height and whatnot, which the bulk standards can be modified as part of this PUD approval process. As mentioned previously, this is the first step in a multi-step regulatory approval process, which will take years. Next slide, please. With an understanding of the site and the surroundings and the regulatory environment in which we're developing, we want to focus on the program next as part of our planning process. We have a series of residential home types, starting with the 50-foot wide single-family detached home, as illustrated here, illustrating the craftsman architecture that Mr. Powell had mentioned. You can see that from a setback standpoint, we have 25-foot front yard setbacks, 15-foot combined side yard setbacks, and 30-foot rear setbacks. This is absolutely in keeping with what the market is demanding. People don't want to spend a lot of time maintaining their yard. They are shuffling kids from various athletic activities and going to a variety of things themselves. They'd rather use the time to do that and then use community amenities. Next, please. This is the 40-foot wide single-family detached home, which is also proposed within the community. The same size, the same setbacks as previously mentioned. Next, please. This is the age-targeted duplex, which has the same setbacks as both the single-family homes. Next, please. we are proposing two types of townhomes in the community, a 20-foot wide and a 24-foot wide. These are illustrations of what those will look like. The setbacks are actually the same as for the single family homes, 25-foot front, 30-foot rear. The only difference is that there will be a minimum of 20 feet between end units. Next, please. And finally, the last product type that we're proposing is a multifamily residential home, as illustrated here. Don't have any specific architecture for it. This is we believe matches the Craftsman style that we're shooting for in terms of the single family homes and townhomes. Next, please. The final program element that we're really focused on is the amenities. Amenities are really a connecting link throughout any master plan community. As Mr. Powell mentioned, we have a variety of passive and recreational open space areas totaling 55 acres throughout the community. The centerpiece will be the community clubhouse, which will have a fitness center and pool. We'll have a variety of tot lots and pocket parks in neighborhoods, walking and hiking trails throughout to provide connectivity, and dog parks and community gardens to promote social interaction. And we'll illustrate where those are momentarily. Next, please. When we talk about design, we start off with this summary analysis, and we understand the site, we understand the program. Next. So then we start to lay on some overarching concepts. The first concept is we want to maximize the preservation of the existing forest, which you see in green, and we want to respect and buffer our neighbors to the south in the Black Rock Estates, which is identified in yellow. Next, please. We then start to overlay some of the form-giving elements to any master plan community, primarily road circulations, amenities, and the creation of neighborhoods, as Mr. Powell mentioned. So the blue is the primary community road network, which interconnects the entire community, and every neighborhood within the community will have access off of that community spine road or community boulevard, if you will. Next, we have the community, whoops, I'm sorry, can you go back? Thank you. We also have the community center, which is centrally located within the property, within the community, to provide access to all. And then we have the creation of the various neighborhoods, which are illustrated here with the letters A, I think through O. Next, please. And thank you. And then from there, we start to lay in the detail. And so we have several overarching goals. We want a strong community identity off of Mount Etna Road. That is provided via a boulevarded access, a boulevarded entrance with no homes fronted. Thank you very much. Wow, this is great. Boulevarded entrance, which comes in, hits a roundabout, and then either turns right into the age-targeted neighborhood or left to connect to all the other neighborhoods. That boulevarded road will also provide a second means of access for emergency service vehicles. Should something happen on the inbound, a emergency vehicle could alternatively use the outbound lane to get up to the community spine road. If you can zoom back out, thank you. Then we have this series of interconnected neighborhoods through the spine road. We wanted to make sure that those are connected via a strong amenity program, which is centered on the community center in the center, but also has a neighborhood park in each one of the neighborhoods. So every neighborhood will have a small pocket park gathering area. Maybe it's a tot lot here, a seating area there, a small garden here, and whatnot. So every neighborhood will have those types of opportunities, which will all be interconnected via the community spine road. Next overarching goal was the diversity in product throughout the community. As you'll illustrate, the townhomes are not all located in one area. The single family homes are not all located in one area. We have purposely sprinkled those throughout the entire community so that as the community grows, each neighborhood can grow with it. If their product matures and the buyers are looking for more 24-foot townhomes than 20-foot townhomes, or more of the 50-foot single family homes versus the 40-foot single family homes, we can provide those as the community grows. We've also illustrated here in the medium blue that you can see our large stormwater management facilities in the right locations at the low points, which would be augmented with a variety of other environmental site design features for stormwater management. We've also wanted to minimize the traffic on Sasha Boulevard. As you can see illustrated here, there is one connection through neighborhood N, where Sasha Boulevard will terminate. The blue dash line that you see continuing north, that would be gated for emergency access only into the multifamily neighborhood L. So only those residents within neighborhood N would have direct access to Sasha Boulevard. Other residents can have access to there, but we don't believe they will. So for example, if I'm in neighborhood I or K, am I likely to drive down our community spine road, make a right onto neighborhood N road, come to a stop sign, make a left onto Sasha Boulevard, and then continue down? Or would I just rather continue down through the community spine road out our main entrance? It's more likely that I would do that because of potential interference and conflicts with driveways and a variety of other things. So we believe we've taken that into consideration. It's a very important consideration for us. And finally, as is illustrated on this plan, we want to provide opportunities for future road connections to our neighbors to the north and to the east. You can see illustrated a couple of blue arrows which head up over by Bovey Lane, which would ultimately, which would ultimately connect up to Kiefer Funk Road, and then through neighborhood D, and then over through neighborhood A as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. As Mr. Powell mentioned, we are proposing closed section curb and gutter roads. The existing approved PUD only has open section roads with no sidewalks and drainage swales, which would have the driveway culverts at every driveway through the community. That's not a planned community that we're interested in developing. So we have 3 road sections. The first is the community boulevard from Mount Etna up to the roundabout. You can see the walkways on both sides, the parkway, the 8-foot parkways for tree plantings, a nice median. Next, we have the 60-foot wide to the lower left. We have the 60-foot wide community spine road. We are proposing an 8-foot multimodal path on one side of the road and a 5-foot walkway on the other side of the road. We have the swale in specific areas. We will do that when it makes sense, where we would not have any driveways or whatnot. And that could be used for environmental site design, stormwater management features. And finally, when you get into the neighborhoods, the lower right of way, you will have a sidewalks on both sides, again, the 8-foot parkway, and 24-foot roadways within the neighborhoods to slow traffic down. Next slide, please. From a phasing standpoint, we anticipate 5 phases. Construction will begin in 2023. When we're through the approval process, this is phase 1. It includes the age-targeted duplexes in parcel in neighborhood A, and the single-family homes in neighborhoods B, N, and O, and then the townhomes in neighborhood C. As you can see, all of the products are being offered at one time. And so when somebody comes in, if they're looking for a single-family home, but they can't necessarily afford it, then maybe they go to a 40-foot. If they can't afford that, then they can go to the 24-foot. Or if they're really interested in the age targeted, they can go there. That product segmentation is really, really critical for larger scale master plan communities. Next. Phase 2 will begin construction in or around the spring of 2025, 2026. It'll bring in additional single family home neighborhood N and townhome neighborhoods D and M. The community center parcel will be available at that point in time, but we do not believe it will begin construction at that time. We're going to wait probably until 50% of the homes. We have building permits for 50% of the homes before we begin construction on the community center. Next, please. Phase 3 will begin construction 2028, 2029, and that's single family neighborhoods E, F, and K. Next, please. Phase 4 is begin construction in 2031, 2032. That's single family neighborhoods J and I, and townhome neighborhoods G and H. And finally, next, please. Phase 5 would be in 2033 or 2034, and that would be the multifamily neighborhood. And it's important to note the multifamily neighborhood is specifically planned for the center of the property, buffered by all property lines from all of our neighbors via our development, with a minimum of a 50-foot setback required by code to the single family homes within our neighborhood. So we've really buffered the highest density portion of the community here in neighborhood L. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Erskine for his discussion. Thank you.
And you're running pretty short on time, so if you could make this brief, I'd really appreciate it.
You bet.
Yes, thank you. My name is William Erskine. I go by Bill. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Offutt Kerman, and I will try to keep this very short. Mr. Davis really covered a lot of the elements that I want to highlight for the commission. Really, I want to talk to you about the way that this proposed amendment satisfies the 5 criteria that are needed in order to make a major amendment to an existing PUD. The first criteria is that you must consider the purpose of a PUD. And the purpose, as you may know, is to manage the implementation of existing PUDs. This criteria recognizes the need for flexibility to respond to changing conditions and markets. The next criteria is applicable policies of the of the adopted general plan. And with that, I'd like to refer you to Chapter 12 of the adopted general plan. That's the land use plan as it appears in that planning document. And as Ms. Baker indicated, the purpose of the general plan is, in at least Chapter 12, is to manage growth to areas of the county where there's existing infrastructure. And as has been described, this property is within the urban growth area. That's an area that occupies about 16% of the land within the county. The overwhelming amount of land within the county is outside of the urban growth areas. If you refer to page 246 of the general plan, Chapter 12, that's an area that describes the low density sub-policy area. And I just want to be very clear that this policy is very much in harmony with the low density residential sub-policies. There's going to be conversations, I'm sure, about the appropriate density being in the 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. But what is often overlooked is that the general plan, it doesn't end right there. It says 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre unless the property is a planned residential community. In that case, the maximum density is 12 dwelling units per acre. So if you look at it from this perspective, the density of this plan is 5.2 dwelling units per acre, only slightly 1 unit above what is typical for the low density residential. But it's a PUD, it's a PUD today, and it's permitted to have up to 12 dwelling units. That at 5.2, that is nearly 7 dwelling units less than what is permitted under the general plan and under the regulation. So I hope that puts it in perspective just a little bit. The next criteria is compatibility of the proposed changes with neighboring properties. Mr. Davis went into a great detail of explanation about this, so I won't repeat it, other than to say that great thought and consideration was placed into arranging the residential products in areas taking advantage of topography so that they're all well buffered from their adjoining neighbors and uses. As a result of all of this, it results in a well-integrated community, one with a wide variety of housing products and with varying levels of price points. The fourth criteria that is required to be considered is the effect of the proposed changes on community infrastructure. And this is an often misunderstood criteria, because a lot of times folks will take a look at this and they'll say, well, wait a minute, the roads are already overcrowded, and well, wait a minute, we already have water pressure issues and we already have school overcrowding. But that's not what this criteria asks the commission to do. It doesn't ask you to look at, can this project be built today with the existing infrastructure? Rather, what it does is it asks you to look and consider whether any of the infrastructure elements are highly unsolvable. And where that term comes from, and I'm going to just very quickly, I'd like to read to you from the November 19th, 2002 Board of County Commissioners that addressed this very issue in this original PUD. And what they said was, the adequate public facilities ordinance has taken on a supportive role that was previously the sole responsibility of this item in the zoning ordinance during the rezoning stage when considering deliberation of a PUD case. Due to this change, it would appear that now the Planning Commission and the county commissioners would only have to assess infrastructure issues at the zoning stage that would appear to be highly unsolvable. The applicant has indicated that he is fully aware of the APFO implications and is willing to assume the burden placed upon him. So with that viewpoint, the question is not whether it exists today. The question is that under APFO, when and if this PUD is developed, and I say if, because if APFO is not satisfied, and if there is not adequate facilities and infrastructure, this will not be built. It is actually this commission that will make the decision in the future whether this will be built. What would be awarded today is tentative density. It is not an award of density, it is tentative density. And as we go through the process, as we go from the preliminary development plan to the final development plan to subdivision plans and site development plans, we have to satisfy the APFO ordinance at each step of the way. And if we don't satisfy it, we don't progress. So again, the question is not whether you could build it today on the roads that we now have, it's whether those things can be improved. Can we make additions to schools? Can we widen roadways? Can we put a tower on the property and increase water pressure? And the answer to all of that is, well, of course we can. None of this is highly unsolvable. The final criteria, consistency with the intent and purpose of a PUD. Well, obviously that's to have flexibility and creativity in the design of residential areas. It is to promote the economical and efficient use of the land. It is a fact that as you increase density, the development becomes more efficient and economic. I will close with just one more comment. There's a lot of amenities that have been added to this plan. Passive and recreational areas, tot lots, pocket parks, community clubhouse, hiking trails, dog parks, community gardens. It's really added a lot to the community. And with that, I thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate the presentation, and I think it's important for those who will follow up later on with comments to have heard that. But before we get to that, members of the commission, I will open the floor for questions from members of the commission to either staff or the applicant. Are there any members of the commission who have questions or would like to ask questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, then we will go into the public participation part of the meeting. The first member of the public who has signed up to speak is Andrew Hoffman, representing the Black Rock HOA. Mr. Hoffman?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sir, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Andrew G. Hoffman. I live at 20341 Ayub Lane in Black Rock, and I'm secretary of the Black Rock Estates Homeowners Association. Is that, you need anything else?
Yes, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, the reason I am talking is because there's a concern in the BlackRock subdivision that this development will adversely impact our investment in our homes. And we can segment that into 4 basic concerns. One has to do with the adequacy of water, where we have water pressure issues, and many houses are using pumps to pressurize their water. We have volume concerns, case in point in 2010, when a home burned to the ground and there was nothing really coming out of the hydrants to fight that fire. We are concerned that our homes are not adequately protected in terms of a fire hazard. We are concerned of traffic. And while the gentleman would go to the left at that intersection, everybody else would go to the right because it cuts off at least a quarter mile of driving time to get into Robinwood. And we think that the street without street lighting, without sidewalks, without a improved intersection with XL, decel lane is not adequate to handle what fraction of the 8,000 more units of cars coming in and out. And we don't believe that the intersection with Robinwood and Mount Etna is going to be we're going to go back to where we were a couple of years ago with major backups if we get that many cars on Mount Etna. And we say that Whitehall and Mount Etna to the east are not adequate roadways for increase in traffic. We're looking at the transition. This is putting higher density next to agricultural land. It is higher density than we have. There are 135 houses in our subdivision. This would be greatly in excess of that. I really didn't see in the plan that was submitted the buffering that was referred to between the small housing units and the existing homes in BlackRock. Noted that the old community center that was eliminated in 2013, replaced by 7 lots with buffering, now is going to be replaced with 23 lots, and the buffering appears only to be the setback and the building line of those lots. We don't think that that is really keeping the integrity of the community intact. We are concerned about the school system and the adequacy of schools because they will impact the marketability of our properties in such case that we need to do that. So the other thing that is kind of a tangent to this is we're really not sure what the process here is. The plans that we received did not show all the amenities that are being referred to. There was nothing on those plans showing top lights. The top lights that were shown in the original PUD were gone. The community center was gone, replaced by a field. We don't see the walkways, and we're concerned that this is simply going to create as much density as can be put into the property, allowing for forestation, roads, and stormwater. We think there should be a required access to King's Crest or to Woodbridge Drive, which are logical outlets onto Robinwood. I realize that those properties are developed, but it's a single lot width to get to those roads, and that would greatly relieve the stress, I think, on Mount Etna. The biggest concern and the overall concern is that we don't solve these things going into it. We kick the ball down the road and say, oh, we'll build some, and then we'll address this problem or we'll address that problem. I think that this all needs to be planned out at the beginning so that we don't end up a couple of years into this and start backpedaling on what was required. And I think that sums up the comments I wanted to make for the homeowners association.
Thank you, sir. And just to clarify for the record, since you represented the HOA, you had 5 minutes, not 3.
Oh,
But
I was talking faster when you cut me down. So.
Well, I appreciate the brevity. I really do. And thank you for your comments. We will take them under consideration. Next this evening is David Kirkman. Sir, if you could unmute and state your name and address for the record, please. Mr. Kirkman?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Clint, I'm trying to find him.
Can you hear me now?
We've got you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. My name is David Kirkman. I live at 11010 Sawney Lane in Black Rock Estates. I'm also the president of the Homeowners Association. So I didn't know I was going second, but I will highlight some things that Andy mentioned. Our current road, Sasha, was obviously designed to lead through back to this property, but there are no sidewalks. There are no streetlights in Black Rock Estates. A lot of people walk on the side of the roads here. They walk up and down Mount Etna. And this increase in traffic load is going to be a significant safety issue in our mind, as well as just changing generally the nature of the neighborhood when the traffic comes through. I understand the gentleman's point about, people would rather stay on the boulevard, but I think realistically, that's naive. 70% of the units in the layout are closer to Sasha than they are to the exit on Mount Etna. And no matter which way you go, you put houses or cars down Sasha to Mount Etna, which is a straight shot, and you put cars out a half a mile down the road on Mount Etna, they're still on Mount Etna. So this traffic is going to be a problem going south or north. And to Andy's point, we believe a requirement ought to be to cut through to Robinwood on the other side of this new development and make the connection there, where, as the applicant states, a lot of good road enhancements have occurred that would allow traffic back into the city more quickly and easily. We have some concerns about the history of the PUD and irregularities in its history. As the gentleman said in their presentation, nothing has been done since it was approved in 2004. That's over 16 years. The ordinance required a timeline of progress on PUDs, of plans, of approvals, of turning dirt. That hasn't ever happened. And it also had a provision that there needed to be an extension requested and voted on by the Planning Commission if a PUD was going to stay legally alive during that period. We've researched all the minutes of the Planning Commission back to 2014 that were online. We can find no notice in any of the agendas or the minutes that the commission has ever voted on an extension of this PUD. So we question whether this PUD is legally alive. And since PUDs were ended in 2018, if it's not, then this is all a moot point because there is no PUD to discuss here. So we'd like someone to look into that because that is not in the record if that ever occurred. The water volume and pressure issues, as Mr. Hoffman said, we lost one home in here and the fire department was sucking water out of a nearby pool to try to save that home. The fire department and the staff, in the staff report, you'll see that the other fire departments have made mention of Dowie's house and other fires in the area that they were unsuccessful at fighting due to volume and pressure issues. So I disagree with the gentleman that says the volume is there and Ms. Baker who says the volume's available. It's just first come, first serve. We have pressure and volume issues now, and any more homes added at any time without the tower that's talked about, the second connection and larger service into this area is going to be, a danger to our property and a danger to people's lives. And I think you ought to consider that in allowing this to grow even more and add to the density, because it's just going to be a harder and harder deal to work with if that infrastructure is not in place before anything starts. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next this evening, we have Erin Walsh Kirkman.
Hello.
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please, and then the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. My name is Erin Walsh Kirkman. I live at 11010 Sawney Lane in Black Rock Estates. So I have several concerns. Some of them were addressed, but to the extent that, as just the person who lives here and uses the roads both to run and walk on, the population density in this PUD, even the original PUD or the original plan, is a huge concern. Our schools, the roads, the intersections, all of our services will be negatively impacted by the hundreds of people living in the proposed PUD. And even if you say this is going to happen gradually over time, we're still going to have this issue. Another issue is traffic. If each of these almost 1,150 households has 2 vehicles, that's over 8,000 trips that has been estimated before, that's going to be dumped onto Mount Etna Road. And it's the only point of ingress and egress for this development. The road and the area roads surrounding this quiet, peaceful community and the neighboring communities up and down Mount Etna Road, by the way, it's not just Black Rock Estates. They're not adequate to handle the increased demand that would be anticipated from this development. So basically the planned development of 595 residences, the original plan, let alone this proposed PUD, would change the character of the area neighborhoods along Mount Etna Road, absolutely leading to more people, traffic, safety issues, noise, as well as reduction in property values. Please do not allow this to happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Next person we have is Patrice Wallace. Is Patrice Wallace available?
Ms. Wallace, can you unmute?
All right, we'll move on. We've got Trisha Churchy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. It's Trisha Churchy at 659 Tudor Drive in Greenwich Park. I'm one of the developers of the development team of Churchy Group. And just to give someone a little history, when we started the concept of Greenwich Park, we applied for a PUD. And we applied for a PUD for the sole reason to keep a beautiful stone barn that was on the property. And we wanted to make it a little meat market, a little ice cream parlor or something for the community in the surrounding area. And of course, we had public meetings like this one is through Zoom. Manny stood up and pretty much said, I give you enough taxes, you need to listen to me. Please do not allow Greenwich Park to be a PUD because you will ruin the character of Black Rock Estates. And Black Rock Estates is gorgeous. And we're happy to be in this end of town, in the east end of town. Nothing that we were going to do was going to change anything to his Black Rock Estates. However, what he's going to do to my Greenwich Park is quite different. We were told by the same government body to go back to the drawing table because a PUD was not acceptable for this corridor of the east end of town, and it would change the value of the existing homes. And so we did just that. We tore down a beautiful stone barn and we created Greenwich Park. I think we've added to the community And so I'm going to say to you as a taxpayer, I represent 159 members of the Greenwich Park HOA, and myself, along with my partners, have 34 lots or homes in there in Greenwich Park. So I'm a huge taxpayer, and I would like you guys to listen to me this time the way you listened to Manny when he didn't want our PUD to be ruining his neighborhood. I don't want his PUD to be ruining my neighborhood. And of course, I have the concerns that everyone else had about the water and the roads. But thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Next, we have Kenneth Archer.
Yes, my name is Ken Archer. I live at 20502 Tehrani Lane in Black Rock Estates. I'd like to focus on the traffic issue. When residents leave the proposed PUD each day, we believe that the destination for the majority of the residents will be in the direction of Hagerstown, which is west of the PUD. The major roadway of Robinwood Drive is west of the PUD. However, the developer states in its proposal that there is no way to route traffic out of the PUD west to Robinwood Drive because of private property in the path. The developer's solution is to instead route the traffic east through the PUD, either using Sasha Boulevard through Black Rock Estates residential neighborhood and onto Mount Etna Road, or east through the PUD using a yet to be developed internal spine road to the easternmost end of the PUD and onto Mount Etna Road. Thus, instead of traffic from the PUD flowing west out of the PUD to Robinwood Drive, traffic will flow in the opposite direction east and then double back west. Your staff just mentioned earlier that Robinwood Drive has improvements in lighting, but we don't see that as relevant when no traffic from the PUD will go directly there. Instead, it will go to Mount Etna Road. This solution is not acceptable for quality of life, safety, and environmental reasons. The developer estimates over 8,100 vehicle trips per day. Routing such enormous traffic volumes through Black Rock Estates using Sasha Boulevard and also Mount Etna Road will disrupt the lives and lower the property values of the residents of Black Rock Estates, Brightwood, Hamptons, Greenwich, and other communities. On both Sasha Boulevard and Mount Etna Roads, there are no sidewalks or lighting, and both are used by bicyclists, joggers, and walkers. The county park and golf course are there. There are bound to be fatalities. Think of dual highway and the problems occurring there. Emergency vehicles will have trouble accessing these communities in the PUD. To the extent that traffic from the PUD is destined to go east toward I-70, both Whitehall Road and Mount Etna Road eastbound are completely unsuitable for additional traffic. Washington County's zoning ordinances require that existing and planned streets shall be of sufficient capacity to serve existing traffic and all new traffic. Also, the ordinances require the Planning Commission consider capacity of existing streets in determining PUD density. The ordinances state that PUD housing density resulting in traffic capacity being exceeded on streets shall not be permitted. In conclusion, we maintain that an efficient traffic management solution must be found or the PUD should not go forward. The developer's solution to have vehicles driving in circles on residential streets is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Anita Thomas.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Anita Thomas and I live at 20310 Ayub Lane, Hagerstown. And do I start?
Remaining.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Many of the speakers before me have voiced my concerns with this development going on behind the Black Rock Estates. And like Mr. Archer, I have major concerns with the traffic. I utilize the roads as for recreation and exercise. I run and I ride my bike. Already Mount Etna Road is a very dangerous place to ride a bike, even with the shoulders on the roads. People come flying over the hills in excess of the speed limit. They wander into the shoulders of the roads. And one of my big concerns is where the planned road entering the estate that was stated to be the main boulevard is below a hill where many vehicles coming from Robinwood Drive come very fast over that hill, and there seems to be no plan to have any way to slow those vehicles down or have lights or something at that intersection for traffic leaving the new development to get onto Mount Etna Road. And that will be a very dangerous place for not only the vehicles, but also people walking or riding bikes or, for recreation. As Mr. Archer mentioned, the section of Mount Etna Road between Whitehall Road and Route 66, I guess, Mapleville Road, there's no way you can widen that street. It has lots of twists and turns and roller coaster hills. And I've already almost encountered vehicles in the middle of the road coming around a blind corner, almost wiping me out. And there's no way that those roads can be widened. There are no shoulders. It's very dangerous with the traffic as it stands now. I can't imagine adding another 1,000+ homes there's any way that there will not be major accidents along that road. The other, they're my main concerns. I don't understand. I thought that the County Planning Commission was supposed to have developments reduce their size as they went out into the country. This is enlarging its size.
1 minute remaining.
So they're my main concerns. The other thing I was confused about, you said that the gentleman speaking on behalf of the development said that there would be a gate to prevent traffic in the N region of the development near the community center, I guess. Well, why can't that gate be at the end of Sasha Boulevard? And that would prevent anybody using Sasha Boulevard. If they're insisting that people will use the main boulevard anyway, then why not put the gate at the end of Sasha Boulevard and make people come in the other entrance and turn into the N section there? There doesn't seem any sense to have the gate one intersection further along. Sasha Boulevard is a widely used road. People already speed on that road, and a lot of our residents walk there, and it can be very dangerous at times. So I really do not agree with this development at all. So thank you.
Next.
Great, thank you. Next we have Joe Coleman.
Thank you very much. Joe Coleman. I'm at 467 Thames Street in Hagerstown, close to the Fair Meadows development. Each of the commissioners should have received a personal letter from me outlining all of my comments, so I'll be very brief. I'm opposed to this rezoning. The rezoning is not compatible with the neighborhood, will greatly impact existing infrastructure and our quality of life. Excuse me. Many drivers take a shortcut from Mount Etna to Dual Highway using Fair Meadows Boulevard. It has become a speedway and would be even worse with this proposed rezoning. Speed limits are 25, cars go 35 or more, and children are in the front yards. Mount Etna is unfortunately not much better. Speed limits 35, cars and trucks are going 50. Enforcement is non-existent. This part of the county is a wonderful setting. This PUD should not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I appreciate your brevity. The next we have Hugo Bonatti.
Can you hear me?
Correctly? Yes, sir.
Yeah. I live at 20509 Shaheen Lane. I'm talking for myself, my wife, my 3.5-year-old daughter, and the youngest member on Mount Etna Road, just 20 hours old, little Adrian. We moved to this facility and property less than a year ago. Why? Because it's a great quality of life. There's space between the houses, and I'm flabbergasted by the arrogance of the presenters calling us as antiquated lifestyle. We have beautiful homes here. These are our homes. And what you do is, on our expenses and our quality of life, you want to build something, and your view and your presentation of Pleasantville there with all these amenities is only there because you want to maximize your profit with squashing as many units into this area as you can. This is my point of view. If you think about all the houses and the high values, if any of these houses goes in the market currently, it's going to be sold within days, and people want these houses. There's many people who still want to live this lifestyle. I work at Meritus. Please also consider the traffic you're going to create with this project at the intersection with Robin Wood and what that means for the hospital and access to this area. For this reason, I hope that this commission will oppose to these plans, and I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Martha Sullivan.
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Martha Sullivan. I live at 10902 Sasha Boulevard, and I'm very concerned about the traffic issues that would happen on Sasha and Mount Etna. I see the traffic, the speeding that goes on constantly on Mount Etna. Nothing is ever controlled. There's a policeman out there once in a blue moon. On Saturday and Sunday, it's speed, speed, speed all through, even the development. Safety is a real issue here. We don't have lights because we don't want lights. We don't have sidewalks. We walk on the street. Safety is a major issue, and it's going to affect our quality of life with all this traffic. The other thing is water pressure. Water pressure has never been addressed at Washington County government since I've been here. If they're not going to address it yet, they're not going to address it down the road. When a house burns down because they don't have water, it's totally unacceptable, and I'm totally against this. I'm asking that this proposal of the additional homes not be accepted and a review made to make sure that the homes that were originally approved be reevaluated. Because I even question the density of that amount of homes, and that was done so many years ago that everything has changed now. So I'm just asking that this proposal not be accepted. I also didn't think the buffer was adequate. It doesn't look like there's much of a buffer there. And the other thing that I'm also worried about is crime with all this additional traffic and the speeding that goes on. And who knows, you know, it's just a real safety concern. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have Mark Jameson.
Oh, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, could you state your name and address for the record,
Yes.
please?
Yes, it's Mark Jameson. I live at 1800 London Town Circle in the London Town development. And I'd like to thank the commission members for serving on the commission. I'll just make 3 brief points. The first, I'm speaking in opposition to the rezoning. From a citizen's understanding of planned unit development, I believe that this request defeats the purpose of a planned unit development. Again, this is from a citizen's understanding, because a planned unit development allows for a wholesome design of a community. And by changing the zoning, a major zoning ex post facto, after the PUD approval, it just appears that it negates the concept of a planned unit development. So that's just as a citizen's understanding of a purpose for a public of a PUD. Second, I know reference has been made to the community infrastructure, and we've heard the staff mention that with public water, allocations will have to be changed. Wastewater will require upgrades. The schools, with the elementary schools, will be over capacity, and that transportation will be an additional 8,000 trips per day. I know the developer mentioned something of that community infrastructure had to be highly unsolvable, the phrase, but the way those are all solved is by raising taxes for the average citizen to build more schools, build increased road capacity, to increase water treatment facilities and wastewater facilities. And finally, my third reason for opposing it is that it's not compatible with the neighborhoods along Mount Etna Road. All those are low density neighborhoods. And this would add a high density neighborhood, right on top of everything else. So for those three reasons, I would ask you to consider opposing the major rezoning request. And again, thank you for serving on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Next, we have Candace Carpenter.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Candace Carpenter. I live at 11042 Sawney Lane.
All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. My concerns are primarily around the zoning ordinances themselves and the compliance therewith. If you look to the zoning ordinances, they're very clear that PUDs are not to be speculative. And in doing so, and to address that speculative nature and the potential for that with PUDs, the ordinances lay out a number of very specific timelines that have to be met with respect to proceeding with PUDs. Those timeframes include a preliminary development plan within 6 months of approval, final development plans, submitting site plans, and then construction is ultimately to begin a year after the site plan approval is approved, or a site plan approval is received. As it's been addressed several times, this original PUD was approved back in 2004. I was the individual who went back and looked through all of the existing minutes online and was unable to find any extensions of that PUD itself. There was a minor change to the PUD that was approved by the Zoning and Planning Commission back in March of 2020. However, timelines have passed since then. The first timeline is 6 months after the approval of any change. The ordinances are very clear on that. And again, in the minutes, I see no requests for extensions of that timeline. I see no progress on that. So from a legal standpoint, this PUD should be dead. There should be no changes to it, because it is no longer viable in accordance with the ordinances. Some other issues with the ordinances are, Ordinance 16A4J provides that every phase of a PUD has to comply with the density standards. So while the presenters today established that, yes, we're within the density requirements of the PUD as a whole, if you look at phase 5, which is the apartments, those aren't in compliance with the density standards. I see no way for them to move forward with that phase of this project on that basis alone. There's been some discussion of the compatibility. My issue with the compatibility is not with the existing homes. My issue with the compatibility is if you look along the eastern bounds of this major change proposal for the PUD, it bounds up to the edge of that urban growth area. So because that's the edge of the urban growth area, there isn't going to be any additional building past that edge. So those high density homes right there on the edge are always going to be incompatible with the zones that they butt up against. So we have the incompatibility issue. And then also I just wanted to very quickly address that the developer and his team has been very forthcoming with the fact that part of the reason for this request for a major change is a profitability issue. And the courts of Maryland have made it very clear, I believe it was in the Easter case, that change cannot be arbitrary and changes can't be based on profitability. So I think there's a number of legal issues that they're going to face if they try to move forward.
Thank you very much for your time. Next, we have John Hoover. Mr. Hoover? All right, how about Greg Garner?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, is that Mr. Hoover?
Yes,
Okay, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
yes. My name is John Hoover. I currently live at 1733 Meridian Drive in Greenwich Park for 6 months. I have lived at 20509 Shaheen Lane for 14 years and currently own a building lot in Black Rock Estates adjacent to the proposed project. We previously lived in Brightwood Acres for 27 years. All locations are off Mount Etna Road. Obviously, we have a great affinity for the east end of Hagerstown. I don't know what criteria we'll be using to decide the outcome of this request for the project, I sincerely hope prime consideration will be given for more than the 30 years property owners in the four involved developments have added to the county's tax base. That said, yes, I'm opposed to the project for many of the same reasons the board did not grant this proposal the last time it was proposed. First off, the influx of 1,400 apartments and homes will highly burden the schools in the area. The Board of Education data supports this. Plus, the minimum of 2 vehicles average per house has been estimated at 8,000 increased vehicular trips per day on Mount Etna Road. That will require at least 2 stoplights at Suffolk Drive and Meridian Drive, entrances to Greenwich Park and the Hamptons, and possibly 2 others at Meadows Boulevard and Sasha Boulevard to alleviate dangerous conditions that currently don't exist. Flat, long stretches along between Sasha Boulevard and Whitehall Road will be an invitation for some to accelerate to an upper level of vehicle performance, drag racing. The shortest route to Route 70 is over part of Mount Etna Road, a widely curvy, hilly pathway that is difficult for 2 cars to pass. Traffic on Sasha Boulevard, the only planned entrance to the project of 1,100 dwelling units, will be a great burden and decreased value to those on Sasha Boulevard. Citing an actual example, townhomes were built behind the North End Post Office and were expensive and desirable and were purchased. The same type of project was proposed behind them. These townhomes lost value and were no longer desirable. This is not a hypothesized example, it's an actual occurrence. There has always been a water pressure problem in Black Rock Estates. We strongly advised by the developer to install a whole house water pressure pump before we built within the past year the house was built. It had several fire damages to houses because of inadequate hydrant pressure, testified by Funkstown Fire Department. In fact, 2 weeks ago, the water main malfunction occurred and Black Rock residents were urged to boil water for personal use for two weeks. On Shaheen Lane, we had a large ecosystem pond was frequented by red-tailed hawks, herons, and occasional eagles. Holding a biology degree, this project seems to be in the middle of their habitat. A question to be proposed to the developer: what research has been done to assure that no environmental issues exist? In closing, I feel the board should sustain the quality of life and safety the current residents have enjoyed, and therefore urge the board to issue a decision of disapproval for the same reason the board issued that decision last time it was proposed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Greg Garner.
Come on, Greg.
Mr. Garner.
I did not see him signed in, Clint.
Okay. Next, we have William Stryker.
Yes, my name is William Stryker. I live at 20533 Mount Etna Road. I am basically the first house past Black Rock across the street from the field where the first section of this development would go. So I'm about 1,000 feet from the main entrance to the development. I have a blind spot, a limited sight distance spot right next to my house now where we have a close call probably once every other week. So if we're going to put another 2,000 cars on this road, that's going to be a blind spot that's going to have to be addressed, or I'll have to hold the county responsible for this. Everybody's already addressed the issue of the eastern section of Mount Etna Road being narrow, windy, blind hills and so forth. There's not even enough yards there to widen that road. And let's face it, 50% of these people in this development are going to be commuters to Baltimore, Washington, or even Frederick. So you know half of these people are going to be driving down that road every day. I don't know how that can be done without an accident. But to put this development in perspective, 1,148 homes is more homes than all of the developments on Mount Etna Road combined. If you add up the number of homes in Black Rock Estates, the original Brightwood Acres, Brightwood East, the Hamptons, all of those developments, there's probably 1,150 units altogether. So we're basically doubling the number of units on Black Rock. I mean, on Mount Etna Road. So, you know, it's a 2-lane road. I just don't see how this is going to be safe as far as traffic and so forth goes. Not to mention, I see that Dan Ryan has taken the time to make sure that the homes match the homes that they border and so forth, except for our stretch of road. We have single family homes down here up until up until Whitehall Road, and we're going to have townhomes across the street. So that's not really a match for our community. Anyway, I'd like to thank the commissioners for giving us the time to speak.
Remaining.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Nancy Hall.
She is not signed in, Clint.
Okay, how about Dan Grove?
Hi, everyone. This is Dan Grove. I'm at 20502 Shaheen Lane. I'm in Black Rock Estates. We've lived here for about 12 years. I've lived in the east end of Hagerstown for the better part of 35 years. And I can say that looking at the existing changes that's happened in this area through the Hamptons, through Black Rock Estates, Brightwood East, the traffic on Mountain Road has become often a dangerous situation because of, as mentioned previously, the speeding. There's a lot of walkers, joggers, bicyclers that's currently on Mountain Road, and some of the close calls that happen really wouldn't have happened if the town didn't expand the way that it has. With an additional 8,000 plus trips per day, I think this is going to be unsustainable. I think from my view, as well as majority of the other residents' view who lives around this area, the addition of this PUD is really going to impact also the quality of schools. I know that the applicant plans to assume the burden to resolve some of these problems, but I guess I'd like to hear more about how that's going to happen outside of impacting the taxes on citizens, right? So, I know that sounds, good and everything, but it sounds like smoke and mirrors, at least to me. If you're also looking at the water pressure issues that we currently have, it's a real problem. I know there was an apartment building down in Woodbridge a few years ago that burnt because of water pressure issues. So it's not just Black Rock Estates and Mount Etna, it's the whole surrounding area that has to be upgraded, which it's going to be very difficult to do. Secondly, thinking about turning left-hand turns into these neighborhoods, these communities off Mount Etna Road, with 8,000 new trips per day, that's creating a very dangerous situation. And then finally, the home types. These are all single-family homes here. That's going to take a significant decrease in valuation with apartments right behind our homes, because they are not the same type of homes. These homes that they're looking to build are not comparable to those of Black Rock and to the Hamptons or Brightwood East. These homes are significantly less valued. And people live in these communities here on Mountain Road because that's what we desire, right? This attracts unique people, and it attracts people who want to live in this type of community, not near a PUD and not having a PUD impact our home values. That's all.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Next, we have Edward Strother.
This is Edward Strother, 10912 Sasan Lane. And I'm also a member of the Black Rock HOA. I had planned to say a lot about water, but a lot has been said from the opening comment by Andy Hoffman and others throughout the evening. Suffice to say that it's real and not imaginary, documented in the staff report, this has been historically, Zone 5, which we're in, historically struggled to meet domestic and fire protection water demand. This has been exacerbated, as they say, by geography, lack of a storage tank, and undersized water transmission, clearly requiring some re-engineering. And in consideration of the increase of 595 units to 1,148, they state that a storage tank will be required and distribution improvements, and or otherwise they have to consider retraction from other areas. Now, relative, and speaking from a standpoint of the residents, I am point of contact in Black Rock with the Hagerstown Utilities Commission or Office, and have had conversations about them regarding water pressure issues, which have been documented. Unfortunately, there have never been any resolution or determination of root cause. Moving forward, clearly the staff suggests or recommends a storage tank and distribution improvements. But I find that in the Morris and Ritchie's comments to the staff, they did not establish a responsible plan to ensure public safety nor mitigate the strain on residents. They stated they would explore options during the engineering process, a water stub, a water loop, provide a location with the PUD for potential future elevated water tower. Attorney Bill Erskine earlier talked about solvable, but yet they don't commit or have in plan in the early stages to get that done. As such, it's clear that the staff analysis and history regarding impacts to public safety, the proposed change to the approved POD of 2004 should not proceed prior to implementation of the recommendations for improvement and not deferred for potential consideration. But also to ensure that the adequate public facilities ordinance, and particularly Article 239 on extraordinary hardship, is not loosely exercised as a workaround for required infrastructure improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Patrice Wallace. Ms. Wallace, if you could unmute and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Patrice Wallace. My address is 10933 Sasha Boulevard. I thank the commission for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of this proposal. I think I can speak for myself and most of my neighbors when I say that none of us desire to inhibit any development or any opportunities for the city of Hagerstown to gain a revenue stream. However, as residents in Black Rock Estates, the proposed plan would not work for what has already probably been stated already, the water pressure. And another thing is that I actually had a firsthand account of that lack of water pressure. We had just moved into our home 11 years ago when I got up during the night to look out the window to see my house on the corner, diagonal from my home, was on fire. And it was by the time I could finish my sentence to tell my husband the call, the roof had caved in. Now, fire trucks came as far as, I think, Clear Spring, Frederick, to put it out. They even had to cross my neighbor's yard, who was asleep in her house on the other side of her house from where the house was being burned, and use another neighbor's pool water to try to put the flame out. Needless to say, their effort was in vain as the house burnt to the ground. But, that was just one situation. But as I look at Sasha Boulevard now, our community has become a community of families with young children. And COVID has shown just how many we have in our development as kids have come out to ride their bikes, their scooters, walk their dogs, neighbors interacting. And when I think about the potential traffic that's coming through, because we even talk to our neighbors when we see them come past, come flying down the street 25 miles per hour plus, to remember that our children are here and at any time they can dart out on their bikes or dart out on their little go-karts and et cetera. And that's what we like about our neighborhood, that we're able to let our children go out and play and not feel the threat of them getting injured while they're doing so. So I do thank the commission for giving me the opportunity to speak. I pray that you would take reasonable consideration and that And moving forward, you would look at what we have brought to the table, and you would allow representation of Black Rock Estates to be among the planning stages of this. So it would work for everybody, our community at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We've still got a lengthy list of people who have signed up to speak. I just want to remind everybody that if you've heard that somebody else has, made your point, for brevity's sake, there's no need to repeat it. We can kind of move through this. We've got at least an hour or so left here. Next, we have Susan Wood. Ms. Wood? How about Shannon Peterson?
Okay, can you hear me? Susan Wood?
Oh, okay. Ms. Wood, if you could state your name and address for the record,
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry, I thought you could hear me. Susan Wood, WOOD, 454 Fair Meadows Boulevard. I think this problem with the fire department is huge. I don't think we should underestimate just how huge this is. The Hagerstown Fire Department expressed concerns and highly recommended this not go forward because they've struggled to meet both domestic and fire protection water flows within the entire zone. It's known and well documented. After Doey's house, there was a good example of that facility burning down because there wasn't enough need fire flow. Even though the Funkstown Fire Department has added multiple tankers, it only partially compensated for this problem. And then of course it's exacerbated by the fact that there's going to be more units in a smaller area, more units per acre. They're going to be, what the building materials used, higher elevation, limited access into the neighborhood. These are all serious problems for the fire department. The other serious problem that I think is for our school system. And right now, I know Ruth Ann Monroe is I think the vast majority of the students at that school are lower socioeconomic as if you look at the stats for the free or reduced lunch program. And these kids absolutely cannot be infringed upon by the local rated capacity going over 100%. Greenbrier Elementary would go to 165% of local rated capacity. That is just absolutely ridiculous. And it would obviously, there's no plans for any redistricting. There's no plans for any new schools. These are all huge problems that you never know what the outcome is going to be. All these things, of course, traffic. I'm on Fair Meadows Boulevard. The gentleman before said a lot of traffic cuts through. What are you going to do? Take half my front yard to expand the roads? The bottom line is all these things lead to lower property values, probably an increase in taxes, and a lot of dangerous situations. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We have Susan Wood. I'm sorry, Shannon Peterson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Shannon Peterson. I'm at 20510 Shaheen Lane. Thank you for listening to us this evening. I realize a lot of us are repeating ourselves, but these are our homes, and I think we all deserve the right to speak our minds here. We're excited to see growth in the area, and I think we're all supporters of it. However, from living here, this area is not ready for the addition of 1,100 plus homes. Our immediate concerns are obviously the low water pressure, which we live with every day and have repeatedly brought to the county's and city's attention, only to be met with denial. The Planning Commission has recommended against the PUD, only to have the County Commission set aside their educated input. We cannot afford to be so blinded by the desire for growth that we set aside our experts and ignore all of the infrastructure needs. The addition of 8,000 cars on our neighborhood road is unacceptable for our safety, the safety of our children, the safety of our pets. Despite the claims that most traffic will take the new neighborhood road to the east, the fact is that Sasha is the quickest path from the PUD to the grocery store, the gas station, and restaurants. Mount Etna and Whitehall are narrow and challenging county roads. Without the addition of more cars, the addition of 8,000 plus cars per day on these roads is unfathomable. The schools that are so highly ranked and are the reason that we moved here are nearly at capacity. And I don't know how you can maintain the high standards while adding 1,100 homes to the school district. Accepting anything less than that is putting our children's education aside for increased tax revenue. I'm sure that this developer is not a novice when it comes to protests against their development. Everything they've said tonight has sounded wonderful. They know how to say all of the right things. But I'd like to see what they're actually, I'd actually like to see them, put up and address these concerns instead of just doing lip service to them. My concern is that they have intentionally increased the PUD to over 1,100 units so they can compromise with fewer units and in the end get exactly what they want. The current plan shows 5 lots bordering my backyard, which is now a beautiful view with lots of wildlife. And if this PUD is approved, it will be a backyard with 5 houses overlooking our privacy. Everything I've heard tonight from the builders sounded fabulous, but not on this acreage and not literally in my backyard. The lawyer's verbiage regarding finding loopholes to add more dwellings per acre is very disturbing. He clearly hasn't considered my privacy or my neighborhood's criteria. Please take the advice of the Planning Commission and the residents affected and the people who vote and the people who pay taxes and don't approve this PUD. Thank you.
All right, Jeff Snowden. Mr. Snowden. How about
Can you hear me now?
Ramona? Yes. Please
Okay.
state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Jeff Snowden. I live at 11507 Rambling Pines Place in the Woodbridge development. My initial comments were intended to be about the water pressure. The day we moved in, I bought 300 feet of hose, 4 brand new sprinklers, turned them on, and literally water came out of one about a foot. I subsequently purchased about a $2,500 pressure system. I've had to replace the pump on that at about a $750 expense. Water pressure has never been addressed. That is exemplified in my world, in my neighborhood, by the apartment fire in the Woodbridge Apartments on August 22nd, 2017. There was no water coming through the hoses to the fire from the Woodbridge side. The fire department was able to bring in a ladder truck. We call it Birdland. It's the next community down, and they were able to put fire on the water, water on the fire, more to suppress the heat and prevent the fire from spreading than trying to put it out. There simply wasn't enough water. Anything that is done with this PUD must account for the water before any shovel full of dirt is even turned. The PUD, I believe, sounds like it has expired, and I don't think it should be renewed. Some other points that I'd like to bring up. Mr. Davis spoke about 10 years to complete this project if they sell an average of 6 to 8 homes per month. That doesn't account for rental units. In our development, we have numerous rental units that have never been sold, which subsequently drives down property value. Talk about wildlife. There have been photographs published of bald eagles in that area. Sasha Drive will become the primary ingress and egress to the neighborhood. It's shorter, it's quicker, It's human nature. The stats that show that these types of houses are what people are looking for, I don't know where that survey came from. I had a college professor that wrote a book called Lying with Statistics, and surveys are nothing more than statistics that you use to make your point. I contend that the types of houses that people want are these larger homes on larger lots, spread out, not high density areas. We moved up here 17 years ago from Frederick because we weren't able to afford a large house in Frederick. We wanted to move up here, get some space, spread out, and enjoy the community, which we do here in Woodbridge. I know this development will have a negative impact, not only on Black Rock Estates and those neighborhoods, but also over here in Woodbridge and the surrounding areas. It will have a negative effect on property values. Your tax revenue will go down from those houses because the property value is going to go down. And how much it's offset by this new development, that's to be determined. So categorically, I say deny any expansion and reject the existing PUD because it sounds like it's exciting. Thank you.
All right, next we have Ramona Batista. Okay, she's down the line. How about Marty Brubaker? Martin.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. If you could state your name and address for the record,
Yes,
please,
Martin
sir.
E. Brubaker, 10925 Harkle Drive, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21742.
The floor is yours, sir.
As some of you know, I have been involved in local government planning, budget, and finance in many different capacities in many different jurisdictions for over 50 years, including 25 years in Montgomery County, 13 years on the Hagerstown City Planning Commission, first as an appointed member and most of the time as an elected council member. I have resided, however, on the next ridge to the east of this proposed development, about 1 mile away as the crow flies, for over 4 years, and thus have much day-to-day experience with local conditions. I am testifying as a private resident and not representing any particular interest. Please see my written testimony for further elaboration of what I don't have time to present during the oral testimony. This application to almost double the density of the existing Black Rock PUD for the remaining northern tract should be denied for the reasons summarized below. 1, inappropriate location for increasing planned density. 2, the supporting external road network is very inadequate. I'll quote the attorney for the developer, highly unsolvable for the number and direction of types of trips to be generated. And finally, local government public service expenditures to support housing development usually exceed total revenues generated, thus a net negative budget impact. I say this not to say that housing should be self-supporting, but to forestall arguments that the county needs to increase its tax base. This would not happen in the net result. I'm not an opponent of well-planned mixed-use density. Indeed, I've gotten a lot of flack for supporting such developments at appropriate locations within the county urban corridor or within and adjacent to our municipalities. However, the terms well-planned and appropriate location do not apply to this application. Justifications are made for connections to the Robinwood corridor. That's 5.5 miles and 10 to 15 minutes away. I believe most trips will go to the east, 8,000 trips, 50 to 75%, 4,000 to 6,000 trips. Mount Etna Road and Whitehall Road are narrow, no berms, many driveways, impossible, but that's where the magic interstate is reached and accessed. There's no other direct connection. It's very common for people to come up here. We just had somebody say that from over the mountain, from the metropolitan area, from far away for the lower housing prices here. They won't be able to reach it. The time for making these types of revisions to Black Rock PUD has long since passed. Years ago, it might have been possible to create an alternate linkage to the Robinwood corridor and spread some multifamily housing within other earlier stages of overall Black Rock development. But that ship has sailed, and now is not the time to pile on cargo. You cannot responsibly add to the traffic stream any more than the existing planned density for the road network to the east of here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. We got your email as well. So we have that, and it's been entered into the record. Matthew Stoop. Stop.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record.
11013 Shalom Lane.
And your name, please?
Matthew Stoop, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, my neighbors really did a great job of really voicing my concern. One thing I just want to add is that I happen to live across the street of the house that caught on fire. And believe me, that's not something I ever want to see again. And definitely I am concerned about the water flow. And that definitely needs to be addressed before anything starts the construction, as one of my neighbors already mentioned. Besides that, I really hope that the board listens to all of our concerns and is in agreement, just like with myself, and we're against of this from happening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Next, we have Robert Carpenter.
Robert Carpenter, 11042 Sonny Lane in Black Rock Estates. Like many folks, I'm here to voice opposition, but I'd like to raise a few additional points, and I'll be brief. Much has been said about the criterion to consider compatibility with the neighboring properties. Notwithstanding some of the comments that were made in the presentation, I don't believe the developer has addressed this point really at all. I heard a vague reference to a buffer that does not appear in the plan. I heard much said about the apartment complex and how that's buffered from all the existing properties. But that buffer appears to simply be more high density housing. Nothing that the developer showed us in the presentation is remotely compatible with the existing homes in Black Rock Estates. So if all of that high density housing surrounding the apartments is the buffer, that's actually not a buffer and is not compatible. The stated justification for all of this is solely market conditions and what the developer can sell in this market. I heard a number of times in the presentations the developers saying, our buyers want, and notwithstanding the developer's opinion that our homes and our neighborhood is archaic, that doesn't negate the requirement that they consider compatibility with our neighborhood. The Planning Commission recommended against the existing PUD because of this fundamental incompatibility with the existing single-family homes on the Mount Etna corridor. How then could doubling that density now be compatible? It simply isn't. And that's all I'll say. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Christine Oigliotti.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Christine Oigliotti, 11041 Sonny Lane in Black Rock Estates.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to repeat my neighbors who I'm very proud of turning out tonight. They've pretty much stated exactly what my family's concerns are. And like all of my neighbors, we chose to live in Black Rock, and many others who chose to live off of Mount Etna Road because of the strong safe sense of community location away from high density housing and congested urban sprawl. My husband and I knew when we bought our house 4 years ago that there would be an expansion eventually in the land surrounding Black Rock. We still chose to invest. What we did not choose to invest in, however, was the possibility that the impending development would be much higher density, twice the originally approved plan, dwellings squeezed so tightly together to resemble everything that we sought to avoid in purchasing a home. We did not choose to invest in increased traffic and high demand on the existing infrastructure, both through Black Rock Estates and on Mount Etna Road. The developers earlier tonight referred to Sasha Drive as being a minor throughway. If they anticipated being so minor, then we question why not reserve Sasha for emergency access only, as they've mentioned in other areas of the development. We all know that human nature is to take the path of least resistance. It is simply naive and quite unbelievable to think that the developers truly believe that Sasha Drive would be a minor access point. It will become the main access point. And the overall sense of community and safety within Black Rock Estates will be gone. I completely concur with my neighbors who asked also for an access point closer to King's Crest Boulevard, when that is the direction in which most residents, I think it was cited earlier, 70% of the houses will be on that side of the
1 minute remaining.
The way I see it, the Planning Commission has to decide whether or not to double the size of the original development. It's really a decision of whether or not to propel this beautiful, quaint part of our county in our community into just another congested, high-density, potentially crime-infested area of Maryland, and really determining what this community is going to look like in 20, 40, 80, even 100 years. So obviously, I'm against the expansion, and that is simply the right thing to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Brian Stolars.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Brian Stolars, 11006 Shalom Lane in Black Rock. There's been a lot of talk about the house that had burned down. I actually bought that lot and started building my house here, and then found out about what actually happened to the house before mine. So, as being concerned, I did put a pump in for trying to get some kind of water pressure, because as others mentioned, try to water something and nothing's coming out of the hose. Excuse me. But also went ahead and put sprinklers in because I'm getting a little older, slower moving, and gonna probably need more time if we ever get a fire. Hopefully never. A little more time to get out. And when putting in the sprinkler system, the guy said, "Hey, good thing you got a pump, because otherwise you're not going to have enough water to run these sprinklers." And the volume is another story which he couldn't address. So let's just, everyone else had already mentioned about the water pressure issues and all the other concerns. So I'm not going to talk anymore about those.
All right, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Next, we have Christy Potall.
This is Christy Pottle, 20310 Ayub Lane in Black Rock Estates. And I just want to register my opposition to this PUD and echo the comments that are made by the previous speakers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Next, we have Carlo Cutler. Carlo Cutler.
He's not on the call anymore, Clint.
Okay. How about Thomas Henderson?
Mr.
Can you
Cutler
hear-
is there.
Can you hear me now? Am I
Okay, I'm
audible
sorry.
now?
Who is speaking?
Carlo Cutler, 10909 Sasha Boulevard.
All right, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My apologies for my phone malfunction. I live on the corner of Sasha Boulevard, so I have the unique pleasure of observing everybody traveling fast. I'm very concerned about the safety of children, including my own, who walk, bike, or run down the street. I'm also very concerned that I also am friends with the gentleman whose house burned down. I worked with him at Meredith Medical Center for a long time, and I know he and his family were traumatized. And quite frankly, I think having the water issue not addressed time ago, let alone before this PUD development proceeds, you can use words like negligence. I think that needs to be addressed ASAP. I also have experience working in burn units. I've seen this happen before. I think we should urge the county to address this immediately. I can't even operate my washer and my dishwasher at the same time. Moving on to the environment, I believe it is critically imperative that we understand that most of us, all of us, live here, love our neighborhood, love our houses, love our view, and I see no utility in putting a monstrosity of an apartment complex in front of a mountain view. That is absolutely ridiculous. My third point, and again, I agree with everything everybody said so far, but my third point is the first meeting for this PUD was back in March or April, and nobody knew about it. And now we're doing it now, thank goodness. But why the haste? That's all I have, but as a taxpayer, those are my issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Next, we have Thomas Henderson. Mr. Henderson?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Thomas Henderson, 11020 Sandy Lane, Hagerstown. And I'm in opposition to the development for all the reasons that have been issued before: the water, the sewage, the traffic, and the very legitimate question as to whether there is any viable PUD to revise. It may be that the original PUD, I think, is a viable question, has long since disappeared. So I would not take up any more time, but just reiterate what everybody else has said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Next, we have Dan Skelly.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wiley, I appreciate it. My name is Dan Scally. I live at 11003 Palmwood Circle in Brightwood Acres East. I signed up to speak in opposition to the revision to the PUD that was proposed by the Dan Ryan Builders Association. I'm in awe of how much the community has turned out to show their support for preserving our community. You know, we moved here in 1990 for the very same reason as the other people did. At that time, both Greenwich Park and the Hamptons was a Mennonite farm. You know, obviously that has changed. We are not opposed to planned development, but this doubling of the high density residences in the 200 plus acres adjacent to Blackrock Estates and Brightwood Acres East, I think would negatively impact our property values and lessen our quality of life. I would like to address quickly traffic patterns, which has already been addressed, but to make it very real to you. When I leave my community, I turn from Parkwood Drive onto Mount Etna Road, heading west, to go into town. When I get to the top of the hill, I have to be very careful if I'm turning left onto Fair Meadows Boulevard, because people come flying down Mount Etna Road, not at 35 miles an hour, but much faster. And you have to be very careful when you make that left-hand turn. If I'm heading straight to go into town, I have to be very careful because people coming out of the Hamptons from Suffolk Drive or Baldwin Drive do not stop at the stop signs. They slow down and come out and only tap their brakes if somebody's coming. I can't tell you the number of times I have had to apply my brakes quickly to keep from hitting somebody who just did not stop at the stop sign. They just came on out of that community. Now, I can only imagine what it's going to be like adding thousands of cars driving by our community every day. As I said in the email I sent to you, my back of my property borders only 100 feet from Mount Etna Road. I know what it sounds like when people are obeying the speed limit, but I can assure you the majority of people that drive up and down Mount Etna Road are going in excess of 50 miles an hour, and that is more than 15 miles over the speed limit. It's a safety issue and a quality of life issue, and I'm very concerned about doubling the number of cars that go by our community on a daily basis. Thank you, Mr. Wiley, and the rest of the planning commissioners for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. Next on our list this evening is Eric Peterson.
Hello, everybody. This is Eric Peterson. I'm at 20510 Shaheen Lane in Black Rock. My concerns have mainly been addressed, but I do take exception to the one statement that they had that said, quote, people don't want to spend time maintaining a yard, unquote. If you just look around the whole east side or most of Hagerstown, you'll find that that is not true. And all my other concerns have been taken care of. So thank you. And I'm opposed to this PUD, obviously.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mary Campusano. I may be butchering that.
Yes, no, you pronounced it correctly. So yes, my name is Mary Campusano, and I live in 20509 Tarani Lane, Hagerstown, 21742. And I am speaking in opposition to the PUD. I have the same concern that have been previously stated by many of the neighbors. And the only thing that I wanted to add is that speaking to the legal representative for GRV, point about solvability, while it may be solvable or an issue may be solvable, it does not always translate to adequate and actual resolution of the problem. So that pretty much address or that pretty much speaks to all the concerns that I have. While it is still a concern and it might possibly be solvable, I'm not sure whether it would be actually and adequately resolved. Thanks again for your time and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Gupta Naresh. Is Gupta Naresh available?
I can't find her on the list, Clint, or in the people here.
Okay. How about Tanya Krusaya? I know I butchered that one. I apologize in advance. Tanya?
Can I talk on behalf of my wife?
Who's speaking? I'm sorry, what's your name?
Tanya Krusaya's husband.
Okay, yeah, go right ahead.
Mysore.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Sham Mysore, and address is 20327 Ayub Lane, Hagerstown, Black Rock Estates. And we would like to just reiterate what our neighbors have said. We oppose the existing PUD and the extension. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, we have Anila Haq. Anila?
I don't see that person logged in any longer, Clint.
Okay, I was just trying to look as well. How about Christina Martin-Koski? Christina Martin-Koski?
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, please. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, this is Christina Martin Koski. I'm at 20206 Mahogany Circle in Brightwood Acres East. First, I want to thank the commission and staff for their careful review of the proposal. The feedback from the staff report and the various members of city staff included a wide variety of concerns that have not been addressed at this time. And I earlier provided written comment. And out of respect for everybody's time, I won't rehash those points in great detail, but with the understanding that they have been incorporated into the record. I have heard and agree with many of the comments tonight, addressing the overall plan, the increased density, the traffic, the impact of the water supply, along with the access concerns, impact to the public school systems, and many of these items need further study. And so it's understandable why so many of the residents are concerned about the concept that's asking for such significant jump in density when the repercussions aren't fully known. One item that is known, however, is the negative impact to the school systems. And as a parent, I feel responsible to focus my comments on this issue. The applicant has noted in their written statement that the current plan is to increase density because it's necessary to offset increased cost for regulatory compliance and anticipated amenities. But with this new plan, the burden of this development is shifting to the school children in the Smithsburg and Boonesboro school districts, along with school staff and parents. The staff report acknowledges that there are no plans that can address the expected student population generated from this proposal. There's no redistricting plans, no capital projects or other mitigation efforts that can offset the magnitude of this burden, particularly on the elementary school population. There's no solution either from the developer perspective or from the governmental capital perspective. This is scary, it's highly unsolvable. Good planning must take into consideration the impact of the existing resources, and approving this plan at this density is not good planning. Therefore, I respectfully request that the commission not support the proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Christina Butler.
This is George Butler, Christina's husband. I'll be speaking on her behalf.
Okay, if you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is George Butler. I live at 11105 Shalom Lane in Black Rock Estates. I'm not going to take too much of your time because most of what I had prepared to speak on have already been addressed to the commission. So thank you to my neighbors for that. My main concern, in addition to what's already been discussed, has to do with safety, security, and traffic. I bring a unique perspective to this as a retired Maryland State Trooper with 25 years of experience. We're relatively new to the community. We moved to here last November, and I've truly enjoyed the makeup of this neighborhood and how safe it is to raise my children. And I believe that with the PUD approval, that safety will disappear with the addition of so many properties being added to the neighborhood. Of course, traffic, we've talked about that, so I won't beat that to the ground. But again, I bring that unique perspective to it in that anyone who believes the traffic will not be a problem is seriously naive or just willfully ignorant about what could happen. With that, I'll just end it here. Like I said, everything else that I wanted to bring forward has already been stated. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. I appreciate that. Next, we have Carlos Hungria.
I can't find that person, Clint.
Okay. All right. Well, that concludes the list we had of people who signed up in advance. Is there anybody else who's present who would like to speak?
You can use your raise hand or through the Q&A if need be. Looks like we have one raised hand here, Clint. 1 second. Mr. Archer?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that,
All right, so I'm sorry, sir.
yes.
I need you to state your name and address for the record,
Oh.
please.
Yeah, it's Ken Archer, 20502 Tayrani Lane, Hagerstown.
Sir, didn't you already speak?
Yes.
Okay, then you've had your opportunity.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken who would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, the applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Yes, thank you very much. I will be brief in light of the late hour. Listening to some of the concerns raised by the community.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but if you could do me a favor and state your name as well, so
Yes, I'm
we know
sorry.
who's speaking.
Yes, it's William Erskine again on behalf of the applicant. And if I could just summarize very briefly a rebuttal statement. And that is that, well, first of all, let me say that there were a number of comments about the validity of the current PUD. And I'd just like to assure the commission that the PUD is active, it is in effect. The deadlines that some of the community members were speaking to track from the date of any approved changes to the concept plan. So were we so fortunate to be approved, we would in fact have 6 months to submit a development plan after the approval. But we've been in active processing this entire time. At no time did the developer ever receive a notice from the county that they were out of conformity with any requirements. So the overwhelming evidence is that this is an active PUD. We don't believe that we would be here right now were it otherwise. The other thing that I'd like to say is that many comments were made about, I guess, two things in particular. There's traffic, and then there was water pressure. With respect to traffic, what I would say once again is that all of those concerns are solvable. Roads can be improved. Sasha Boulevard, for example, is an 80-foot wide right-of-way. And I'm not saying that the paved surface today is 80 feet wide, but what I'm saying is there is a width within which to work and make improvements if it's needed. And that's a really large right-of-way in which to work in. So all of those concerns about traffic, the community's testifying as if 1,100 units are going to be built with the existing roads and the existing infrastructure, but that's not at all the way it's intended to take place. This is a 10 to 15 year build out, and at each and every stage, the APFO ordinance will have to be approved. The other issue related a lot to water pressure. And again, that's another APFO issue, but I would point out that, were there concerns about, water pressure, that bodes in favor, it bodes well for the approval of this change, because that's how there are the opportunities to have a water tower on site and to contribute to a portion of the upgrades to the water system. And so it does sound like there's a definite problem with water pressure, and I understand the safety concerns, but it seems like the fastest way to remedy any safety concern would be to facilitate the the development of this property as proposed to be amended. Finally, that I'll leave you with is already there has been approved for final plat, a recordation of over 100 lots that would directly access Sasha Boulevard, and that's under the existing PUD. In addition to that, there's a community center. All of those homes, their access to the public road is down Sasha Boulevard. They all can be built without any enhancements to the water pressure out there. So it really seems like a change to the PUD concept plan. Really, it solves a lot of these concerns as opposed to contributing or making them worse. And I will leave you with that. I thank you for this opportunity to appear before you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate everyone this evening for their participation in our public meeting. As we stated at the onset, the Planning Commission will review all the facts, information presented here this evening, both written and oral, and make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at a later date. The Board of County Commissioners will then hold a public hearing. The date of that public hearing is not yet known, but will be advertised in the local newspapers, legal ads 14 days before the hearing, and again 7 days before the hearing, as well as posted on the county's website. So this concludes our hearing this evening, our meeting this evening. And we appreciate everyone for their time and their patience. This is certainly not easy to do over Zoom, and we understand there are certain challenges that come with a meeting like this in this format. So we appreciate everyone's patience and their willingness to participate. It's important that we have public participation for these sort of issues, and I definitely appreciate everybody's participation. Thank you.
You've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, Clint.
Yeah, it was very good hearing. Very good.
Thank you.
Clint, this is Jill. Can we go ahead then and consider the meeting adjourned?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do we need a motion for that? I don't think for this we do. Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So carried. Okay, Jill, we can go ahead and close the meeting.
Good night, guys.